The echo of betrayal. The fracture of trust. I had promised myself I'd never look at Ethan again, not after he vanished for 3 long weeks. We'd been together for a year, a whirlwind of laughter and late-night promises. But his sudden silence cut deeper than any argument. No calls, no texts, just an empty void where he used to be. I spent those weeks replaying our last moments, wondering what I'd done wrong. Friends told me to move on, and I tried, deleting his number, avoiding our favorite spots. But the hurt lingered, a quiet ache I couldn't shake. By the time the weekend rolled around, I was craving a distraction. A local festival was in full swing, the kind with bright lights, thumping music, and the smell of grilled food in the air. I went with a group of friends determined to lose myself in the crowd. I was on my 3rd drink, the edges of my thoughts softening, when I saw him. Ethan, standing by the edge of the dance floor, his dark hair messy, his eyes searching. He spotted me and pushed through the crowd, his expression a mix of guilt and desperation. "Please," he said, his voice barely audible over the music. "I messed up. Give me one more chance to explain." I should have walked away, but the drinks made me reckless. I nodded, my heart betraying my better judgment. The descent into darkness. Ethan led me to his car, promising to take me somewhere quiet to talk. "I'll drive you home after," he said, his hand brushing mine. I wanted to believe him, to reclaim the warmth we'd once shared. But as we drove, the festival lights faded behind us, replaced by endless rows of shadowy trees. The road stretched on, winding deeper into the wilderness, and a knot of unease formed in my stomach. "Where are we going?" I asked, my voice sharp. He didn't answer, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Hours seemed to pass. 2, maybe 3, before he finally stopped. We were in the middle of nowhere, the silence oppressive. Ahead stood a crumbling structure, its windows sealed with wooden planks, the paint peeling like old skin. It looked abandoned, the kind of place you'd see in a horror story. "Ethan, what is this?" I demanded, my buzz replaced by cold fear. He didn't respond. Instead, he yanked my phone from my hand, his movements swift and deliberate. Before I could react, he grabbed my arm and pulled me inside, the door creaking shut behind us. The air inside was stale, heavy with the scent of damp wood and decay. He dragged me down a narrow hallway to a small room, its walls bare except for a few scratches in the paint. The only thing inside was a stained mat on the floor, its edges frayed. He shoved me in, and I heard the lock click as the door slammed shut. There were no windows, no light, just suffocating darkness, trapped in silence. I pounded on the door, my fists bruising against the wood. "Ethan, let me out!" I screamed, my voice echoing in the tiny space. He didn't answer at first, but then I heard his voice, low and chilling, through the door. "You're not leaving," he said. "Not until I say so." I froze, my breath catching in my throat. He continued, "You don't get to walk away from me." I heard a rustling sound, and then he spoke again. "I'm taking your shoes. If you try to run, I'll break your ankles." The door creaked open just long enough for him to snatch my sneakers, his silhouette framed against the dim light from the hallway. Then it slammed shut again, the lock snapping back into place. I was barefoot, the cold floor biting into my skin, and utterly alone. I sank to the ground, my mind racing. Why was he doing this? The Ethan I'd known had been gentle, thoughtful, or so I'd thought. This version of him was a stranger, his words laced with a cruelty I couldn't comprehend. Days passed, at least I think they did. There was no way to tell time, no sunlight to mark the hours. My stomach growled, my throat dry from shouting. I tried everything to escape, clawing at the door, kicking the walls, searching for any weak spot. But the room was a prison, built to hold. Every so often, I'd hear Ethan outside, pacing. When I screamed for help, he'd retaliate by blasting music through the walls, harsh, distorted noise that made my head throb. "No one can hear you!" he'd yell over the sound. "And if they do, they won't make it out alive." His threats were a constant reminder of my helplessness, each word tightening the knot of fear in my chest. I started to lose hope, my energy fading with each passing hour. I curled up on the mat, the stench of it making my stomach churn, and tried to focus on memories of better times, anything to keep my mind from breaking. But the darkness was relentless, seeping into my thoughts, whispering that I'd never escape, the glimmer of hope. On what I guessed was the 3rd day, something changed. I was slumped against the wall, my voice hoarse from shouting, when I heard a faint sound, a rustling, like leaves crunching underfoot. It was distant, barely audible over the ringing in my ears, but it was real. Then a voice. "Hello? Is someone there?" It was faint, but it wasn't Ethan's. My heart leapt, adrenaline surging through me. I scrambled to my feet and banged on the door with renewed strength. "Help! I'm in here!" I shouted, my voice cracking. The music didn't start this time. Instead, I heard footsteps, heavy, hurried ones. The door rattled, and I braced myself, unsure if it was rescue or something worse. Then it burst open, and I saw my brother, Lucas, his face pale but fierce. Behind him were two figures in uniforms, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. "We've got her!" one of them shouted. Ethan was there too, his hands already behind his back, a uniformed officer gripping his arm. Lucas pulled me into a hug, his voice shaking. "We've been looking for you for days," he said. "Your friends told me you left with him, and when you didn't come home, I knew something was wrong." I later learned they'd tracked Ethan's car to this remote spot, a forgotten property on the edge of the forest. The ordeal had lasted 3 days, but that final moment, the 35 minutes from the first sound of rescue to freedom, felt like an eternity. The aftermath. As I stepped outside, the cool air hit my face, and I realized I was trembling. The night sky was clear, stars scattered above the treetops, a stark contrast to the suffocating darkness I'd endured. Ethan was taken away, his threats silenced by the law. I didn't look at him, I couldn't. Lucas drove me home, and I spent the next few days piecing myself back together, surrounded by family and the quiet comfort of safety. I learned a harsh lesson about trust, but also about resilience. I'd survived, not because of Ethan's mercy, but because of my own strength and the people who refused to stop looking for me. The echo of his betrayal would linger, but I'd never let it define me. Please like and subscribe Meesha'sRevenge and hit the bell icon.